Nick Wright, co-host of First Things First, 3 Eastern on our network. So, before I get to the NBA, I did say this. I like the draft. I've always been into it. There's one kid I just love. There's a lot of questions. So I did a mock draft last week. And now, you do this stuff real well. Was there anything on this? I actually think most of this stuff is not just their good players, but their needs. Like the Jets tight end situation, it's never productive. Geno Smith is actually good with a run game. Ashton Jenney fits there. The Dolphins have to
protect. I like that.
Yeah, the Dolphins, please draft an offensive lineman. You just lost Teron Armstead. Most of these I like. Is there anything that jumped out to you on that?
Well, I'm glad you're asking me. Final mock draft comes out Thursday on First Things First. Remember last year, 19th most accurate mock drafter in the entire world. Your guy, Nick Wright, picked it up as a hobby and, top 20 in the world. Nothing to talk about. So I kind of want to go through this if we can, because I love the draft.
Same.
I don't love college football as much as you, but I think I love the draft as much as you. I cannot believe that you, the man that coined the phrase better than Babe, for Shohei Ohtani, you are not in love with Travis Hunter. Why are we putting a ceiling on what Travis Hunter can do when we saw him it had been at least 8 years since a college football player did 250 snaps on both sides of the ball. He did 700 on both sides of the ball. So I agree with you that he's going to go 2, but just from your talk beforehand, it seems like you're not as in love with him as I am, so I'm just curious why.
I think a little bit is there's a rigidity to football because there's one game a week, and these defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators get very prickly, and they want their guy in meeting rooms. For the record, I think football players practice too much. I mean, Sean McVay proved it. We're not going to have anybody play in the preseason. Now nobody plays in the preseason. So I would argue a lot of it's nonsense. I think he's going to be a brilliant NFL wide receiver. I do think, however, there's going to be people on the defensive side that resent the fact that he's never in meetings. But I have him going too because he's a transformational all-time talent. He's got something Michael Jordan had that I've never seen before. Michael's very rare. Michael could play 18 holes of golf in the heat and then drop 44 and play 48 minutes. Like some guys are built different. They just have this relentless ability to never get tired, and the kid has it.
So, all right, so if we can say, I totally agree with you on the Jags taking Mason Graham. I think that's going to happen. I absolutely agree about the Raiders and Ashton Jenney. Pete Carroll wants to win right now. I think I'm higher on the Raiders than I guess just about everybody. In the race to finish second in the AFC West, which is what the race is. I know this show is big on the Chiefs. I don't know, probably having a top 5 pick next year. Listen to you and J-Mac, how you think of Kansas City. But I think the Chiefs will win the division because they do every year. I think the Raiders going from bottom 3 quarterback to top 12 quarterback, bottom 3 coach to top 10 coach. If they take Jenney, I think they could finish second in the division.
Wow.
So I agree with you on a lot of this. I want to ask you about the Giants, because if you're the Giants and everyone's job is on the line, don't you probably try to double dip? And by that I mean draft Abdul Carter at 3. Everyone seems to think Shedeur is going to slip out of the top 10 and then use next year's first-round pick, which is someone else's problem if you get fired this year anyway, to then trade up and get Shedeur. Like, I do think the Giants could end up with Shedeur. I just don't think they're going to take him over Abdul Carter at 3.
Okay, so this was my dilemma, and I said this. I didn't include trades. A story came out, which I just mentioned 5 minutes ago. I think the Giants want to trade down and get out of the Shedeur thing and then go get Jackson Dart at 28 if somebody moved up, which I don't love either. But I don't think – my take was – Abdul Carter is not worth half a point in the NFL, and if Shedeur can just stabilize the offense, he's worth 4. And I also think Brian Daboll is a pretty darn good coach offensively if he got Daniel Jones to win a playoff game. So to your point, I think they want to trade down. I think there's division in the room on Shedeur, but I would not include trades. So that was my toughest pick. I didn't know what to do with the Giants.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you this much, and then I know you want to get to the NBA.
Yeah.
The Patriots would be thrilled with this because the Patriots are staring at a worst-case scenario of it going Cam Ward, then the two blue chippers, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and then they're like, well, what do we do here? Like, we just spent all that money in the offseason on the D tackle from Philadelphia, so we're probably not going to take Mason Graham. We spent all of our money this offseason on the defensive side of the ball. We have no weapons for Drake May at all. I'm not as bullish on Stephon Diggs as I think some people are, but there's no wide receiver you can take it for. They're not going to take Genty at 4, so I think they would then be in a spot where we're going to take the short-armed offensive lineman, Will Campbell at 4, like that's probably. So I think the Patriots, the point of this is they would love if somehow another quarterback went in the top 3 in addition to Cam Ward, and then they had the opportunity to draft Abdul Carter. I just don't think that's how it's going to fall for them.
Okay, we got good NBA stuff. So I'm going to start with this.
Yeah.
You can't get too caught up in game 1. I'm going to get back to the Lakers in a second, but Vegas is telling you they're a 5.5-point favorite. They had 8 days off. They just weren't ready to play, and Minnesota is one of those teams that loves, like the Baltimore Ravens, they love ugly sports. They love to bang.
Sure.
They're not artistic. They're not aesthetically pleasing. That was perfect. Rusty Laker team, not ready to play, and we just get to be ugly, physical. So I'm not worried about the Lakers. But there's a problem with the Knicks. There is a big problem.
Oh.
They are a campaign fourth quarter from being 0-2 at home. Tibbs is not an offensive coach, and they got offensive issues, and I think a bad time to try and solve them is going on the road at 1-1 in the playoffs. I think the Knicks could be in a little trouble. You were there last night.
So I was there last night. I had pretty amazing seats. I paid for, by the way. I'm not gonna. Nobody gives me tickets. Our friends at SeatGeek, I guess, helped me out a bit, but I bought them. And I was right behind the Knicks bench, and I'm shocked they lost that game. Shocked. You're right that now in retrospect, you look back and you say, man, 8 quarters of this series, the Pistons have been the clearly better team for 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
But going into last night, I thought, okay, the Pistons got demoralized by that fourth quarter.
Yes.
A 21-0 run. In this series, if you were to say, hey, who are the 5 best players in the series, the Knicks should have 4 of the 5. Madison Square Garden is one of the only true home court advantages that exist. It's still in the NBA because it's so loud. They don't play the goofy music throughout the game. The fans are really into it. I know I sound like an old man, but it's true. And Cade Cunningham and those kids on the Pistons, along with the veterans in Tobias Harris and Schroeder, said, no, not today. And Jalen Brunson, well, he played well, but was really trying to get everyone in foul trouble, and that maybe took him a little bit out of rhythm early, even though he finished with 37. Karl Anthony Towns went total milk carton mode where he was nowhere to be found for the final 20 game minutes of that game. Mikal Bridges played, I thought, fine, but missed some open shots. And now all of a sudden, you find yourself in a fight with a team that crowd in Detroit, Colin. The last playoff game, the Detroit Pistons won prior to last night. Paul Pierce was their opponent. It was against the 2008 Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that crowd is going to be out of their mind. And so I think all of a sudden, instead of this being what it should have been, a tidy 5 games for New York, it's looking like it's going to be 6 or 7 with Tibbs playing his guys 40-plus minutes every single night, and then they're going to walk into a buzzsaw against Boston. So I still think the Knicks are going to win this series. I think they have more talent than the Pistons, and I don't think, as great as Cade was last night, and he was great all year, I don't think he's going to throw up 33 and 12 every game. But the Knicks needed to win this series quickly to have any shot against Boston, which they probably didn't to begin with anyway, and I no longer think they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I'll get to the Lakers again in a second. I want to go to Houston. I picked Houston to win, and
Me too.
In 6 or 7, I thought
they need to score.
Yeah, they can't shoot.
They need to make some shots.
But it's really interesting. I want to throw this at you. This is almost bigger than the series. Jalen Green and Amen Thompson. They didn't go to college. They went and got some money, went to these other leagues. And I watched Jalen Green, and I'm like, what is he? He's just an athlete. I mean, the staff clearly doesn't trust him. And I sat and I watched it, and I thought, and I don't want to go too into the weeds on this, but I'm like, here's what worries me about Houston. A bunch of great athletes. I trust one guy in the half-court offense, Şengün. Other than that, I trust Butler. I trust Steph. Pods, I actually think can hit big shots. Draymond, I trust as a catalyst. I may be on the wrong side of this. Golden State has been in so many of these games. You know, Nick, playoff basketball is often half-court basketball, and Houston's not good at it.
Well, so all right, so there's a lot here. You know how they give us those inside the coach huddle sound bites, and normally they're super sanitized because they're not allowed to give us any strategy. I thought TNT released a clip during the game of Kerr talking that I thought the Warriors might get mad at because it was a little revealing, where Kerr says, if we stop turning the ball over, they can't score. And then he added, they cannot score on our half-court defense. That was correct, but it also showed, I think, how little respect Golden State understandably has for Houston's half-court offense. Here is the reason, because I picked the Rockets in 7, and admittedly, I was watching that game like, okay, if this gets to 7, is there a single player on the Rockets other than Şengün and Fred VanVleet that aren't going to be terrified to shoot the ball? So that gave me some trepidation. But here are the 2 reasons that I think you and I might be okay with our picks. First one is this. For a game where the Rockets couldn't score, for them to be down 23 in the late third quarter and still claw their way back, not to get it to a 4-point game, not because they hit a bunch of threes, but because their defense is that good and can slow down the Warriors as much as it did, that to me was a positive sign. And the other one is Steph and Jimmy combined for 56, and the Warriors still only score 95 points. You're higher on Pods than I am. I'm old enough to remember you calling him a Klay Thompson replacement. That was maybe a little premature, but he is their third best offensive player. Draymond doesn't want to shoot. Moody doesn't want to shoot. They're playing Guy Santos, who shouldn't be in the playoffs right now. Quentin Post, who all he wants to do is shoot. Like, the Warriors are a couple bodies short of being a championship caliber team. Now, maybe they can get past Houston based on the brilliance of Steph anyway. But here's one other note. 3 years ago, when Steph was 34, not 37, and the Warriors won the championship, that entire postseason run, he played more minutes than he did in game 1 this past game, 1 time. Like, the Warriors already are going to the, man, we are going to die when Steph or Jimmy isn't on the court. And so if the Rockets can get the split in game 2 and extend this series, I think they could be okay. But somebody's got to make some shots, and somebody's got to play confidently offensive basketball.
Okay, we get to the Lakers. I think the market sometimes tells you 5.5-point favorites at home. I thought Austin Reeves got bullied. They depended greatly on Luka, who didn't pass but scored. And LeBron had 8 days off and just didn't. I mean, listen, it was the classic underdog comes in, told they're facing the league's marquee franchise, big chip on their shoulder, well coached, and the Lakers were caught flat-footed and just never could shift. I do think
That's right.
They're just built, and I think Ant's become a tremendous player. But I do think the Lakers are built to win this series because as much as we love defense, you got to get buckets. And they got 3 playmakers. What say you? I think the Lakers take tonight and control of the series.
Well, listen, I do think they win tonight, and I'd be shocked if they lose tonight, but I was shocked the way they looked in game 1. And I agree with you that offensively the Lakers will be much better. Austin will be better. LeBron will be more assertive. They'll hit more threes. Offensively, I do not worry about the Lakers. Here, though, is the way the Timberwolves can win tonight or win this series. I think that the Lakers' defensive approach of we are going to make Ant a playmaker instead of a scorer was the exact opposite. because I think that has serious knock-on effects. First of all, the Timberwolves over the last few years are, in the regular season, I think 21-3 when Anthony Edwards has 8 or more assists, and the 3 losses, they scored a ton of points, they just couldn't get stops. They are at their best when Ant is playmaking, because A, you have good three-point shooters that are getting wide open looks, and B, everyone knows when guys are getting the ball and seeing the ball go in, they then defend better because they're more locked into the game. So I thought the Lakers' approach would be, and I think it should be, Ant, you're going to be single-guarded, and if you score 40, we'll deal with it. Basically, what the Timberwolves did to Luka. The Timberwolves said, Luka, if you get 40, so be it. You're not going to get 10 assists. The Lakers had the opposite approach. I think that's a mistake. I also think when it comes to Jackson Hayes, JJ's got to make a decision. 0 minutes or 15 plus, but 8 minutes is nonsense. Like, it's not enough time to get in a rhythm, but it's enough time to do some damage to your own team. So he's got to make a decision there. I think the Lakers' best 5-man lineup involves asking a 40-year-old guy in year 22 to play center. But I think Luka, Austin, Dorian, Rui, and LeBron, with LeBron at the 5, might be the lineup that gives Minnesota the most trouble, because the way to punish that lineup would be have Rudy Gobert get the ball, but they won't pass the ball to Rudy Gobert, and he can't score. So that's what I would do. I think the Lakers will win tonight, and I think they're fine. But I was a 9 out of 10 in confidence going into the series. I would say I'm a 7 out of 10 after the first game.
I'm going to throw a take at you before we go. So,
love it.
You're old enough to have seen MJ play a lot. I'm old enough to remember all of it, including the bad games. But I've always said LeBron's always been more magic. I mean, than really the personality, passing, ball handling, elevating others. LeBron's more magic than MJ. Kobe was MJ light. But I've also,
yes.
I do believe this. If you combine Kawhi and Kobe, that is MJ. Is that hand size, strength, no body fat, strength, mid-range brilliance. Michael had personality and durability. Kawhi doesn't. But Kobe didn't have hand size or that kind of strength. That basically, if you never saw MJ play, Kobe had his flair, his personality, and durability. Leonard had the hand size, the strength that, I mean, he'll take on anybody. He doesn't even need pick and rolls. It's like, just bring on Gordon, bring on Porter. That I think there are times that I do see some Michael where I'm like, God, if he just was able to play and had a little personality. What do you make of Kawhi?
Well, listen, Kawhi, I saw James Harden, basically be like he's been disrespected or underrated. I think Kawhi is one of the only superstars in the league who there has never been a day of his career he was underrated. He's always either been properly rated, or there was a brief moment when he went to the Clippers and people were talking about it like he was the best player in the league, where he was a touch overrated, but he's been properly rated. I think everyone understands that a healthy Kawhi Leonard is, year in and year out, a top 5 playoff performer in the league. That is what he is. Now, I think that he has earned that right over a decade of playoff performances. All of them, save the bubble when he and the Clippers fell apart. When he's been healthy, he's been really good. So set the health aside, put it in a drawer, and hope that he's actually healthy. I do think that we have become so incredibly prisoner of the moment-y about everything that it's not about what happened last year or even last week. Game 1 of this series, he was the 3rd or 4th best player in the game. And James Harden was better, Joker was better, Jamal Murray had an argument. Now, Game 2, he gave us the best game any player has had in any game this postseason. And so I think Kawhi is a brilliant player who, the nights that his mid-range is falling like it was last night, there truly is nothing you can do with him. And it was a great win and a great performance, but because I think we feel like we were cheated out of a few years of Kawhi playoff runs, we maybe, when we see it, get a little over our skis about where he is in the NBA hierarchy or how often we can rely on that. But he was unbelievable last night. And the other takeaway from last night, before we go, just fair is fair. It doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it has to be acknowledged. Nikola Jokic, that was the worst playoff game he's had in a few years.
Yeah, so many mistakes.
And he's a big part of
Yeah.
So, he lost track of the clock, took a terrible shot when there was plenty of time. The final shot of the game, Aaron Gordon's wide open. He forces it when he doesn't need to. He has 7 turnovers. He has missed free throws. Their path is Joker being the best player in the world. He wasn't anywhere close to that last night. So, again, heavy is the head that wears the crown. He wears the best player in the world crown last night. I expect him to bounce back. But if you just get an average Joker game last night, the Nuggets are up 2-0, and it's a very different series.
Nick Wright, co-host First Things First. You look great as always, buddy. Crush it today.
Thank you. You too.
All
See
right.
you soon.
Yeah, he pays for his own seats. That's a real journalist, America. No freebies. No freebies. Nick Wright's out there grabbing his wallet.